Hi, this is Christine Echeverri with Carrier Shell Curriculum. I am so excited to be at this conference. Today I'm going to be talking about what interdisciplinary education is and some of the awesome benefits from doing interdisciplinary education. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to a carrier snail. This wonderful animal moves along the ocean floor and finds other shells and different little animals and actually attaches those animals to itself. In the same way, homeschool families have options about what types of curriculum that they can choose. And in effect, families will be able to create their own carrier shell based off of choices that families make. Well, I think this slide really illustrates what the concept of interdisciplinary learning actually is. With learning just through disciplines, we see this nice, neat stack of books. With interdisciplinary learning, many more offshoots and investigations are possible if we do not limit ourselves to sticking within only one discipline. Some of the benefits of interdisciplinary learning that I've seen are that oftentimes students are very surprised about the places that learning goes. Also, multisensory connections are made and many more creative solutions are possible. I've seen this in my own experience with my class at the co-op that I've taught. Initially, a few students were not that excited about taking a California history class. But when I brought in a lot more other things like life science, earth science, poetry, and more, they really, I think, were surprised about how enriching and how interesting it was. Something else that I've really thought about a lot, especially during this time period, is how very true it is that life is interdisciplinary. So we know with this current situation with the COVID virus, it obviously impacts us scientifically. But it impacts so many other things. Our economic situation, our transportation, our families, our children's childhood, the arts, and even our history. It's going to impact all these different variables. I love this quote by Leonard Bernstein. It was an initiation to the love of learning how to learn as a matter of interdisciplinary cognition. That is, learning to know something by its relation to something else. So the following are some of my most favorite interdisciplinary resources. When we studied U.S. geography, we looked at a regional approach to studying the United States, and we also used the cookbook Eat Your Way Through the USA, which was just a lot of fun for all of us. When we studied the Renaissance, we used Rats, Bowls, and Flying Machines, a fabulous resource that looks at a lot of different disciplines. And we also looked at the music of Sting, who played John Dowland music. When we studied botany, we used the great resource of the Sassafras Science Adventures, the botany version, and we looked at the artwork of Ernest Haeckel. When we studied ornithology, or the study of birds, we used Kim Wright's Bird Adventure. And then we also explored poetry and folklore mythology about birds. One of the things that we tried for U.S. history is I had my kids do All Things Fun and Fascinating, the IEW resource. And then we also read just a lot of different literature approach books, including Ben and Me, which is a great, great book. Finally, as we studied ancient cultures, we read different picture books, and we also used the Story of the World Activity Guide, which is just a fabulous resource for hands-on activities. So using this approach for California history, what we've come up with is California out of the box. Just to give an overview of the curriculum itself is for grades 3 to 6. It's a year-long curriculum, and it's a teacher's guide with reproducible student sheets. The curriculum itself uses 5 historical fiction books plus 2 other resources. The thing I love about homeschooling is that everybody in the family has an opportunity to learn something. So I always feel like as a parent in my own homeschool, I end up learning a ton just right alongside my own kids. And it's really my hope that parents, especially families that are new to California, would learn a lot about the Golden State in this curriculum. The curriculum itself uses the historical fiction books that I mentioned earlier, as well as 2 other unique resources. The first one is the Audubon Field Guide to California, which is a great book for exploring the habitats of California, plants, animals, rocks, and a lot more. And Stories from Where We Live, The California Coast, is a fabulous book because it's almost like a series of field trips all in one book. It's about kids' different experiences in different natural environments in California. So just to give you an idea of how interdisciplinary learning occurs in this curriculum, for Island of the Blue Dolphins, as students are reading that book, they'll learn about the coast and island's habitat. So as they're reading the book, one of the projects in the curriculum is to create a habitat, a home in the style of the coast and island's habitat, so using those sorts of materials. So to continue on with the interdisciplinary approach, as another one of the projects in the curriculum is to have students observe different leaf shapes. So in whatever natural environment students are in, they will go around and collect a number of samples and then use the Audubon Field Guide to figure out which type of leaf shape that they've found on their leaf walk. So using Stories from Where We Live again, while students are at the Channel Islands reading Island of the Blue Dolphins, students will read a story about the Catalina Pigeon Express that ran between Catalina Island and Los Angeles in the late 1800s. At that time period, there were no phones or telegraphs to take messages back and forth, so these wonderful carrier pigeons would bring rolled up messages on their talons to the mainland. So that's an exploration that can be done, which comes out of reading story and exploring the Channel Islands. So another exploration in the curriculum, again with the interdisciplinary approach, is after students read about the Pigeon Express and they end up in the mainland of California in the Hollywood, Los Angeles area, students will explore the La Brea tar pits and the Pleistocene time period and the woolly mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers and the dire wolves. So using the Audubon Field Guide to California and Stories from Where We Live, students will open up this time period. Moving on in time, during the Ranchos and the Missions period, students will read Valley of the Moon, which is a fabulous resource. It's a very fresh look at the missions and the Ranchos time period from the perspective of a historical fiction character. And I really love it because it's almost a very interdisciplinary resource itself. It looks into the traditions of the time period, and just a lot of things are explored that are unique, such as Las Posadas and Dia de los Muertos. So as I've written the curriculum and I've taught it in a co-op as well, I've definitely have put together more projects. So stay tuned for a California Out of the Box project supplement. So one of the things that I love and I mentioned earlier about interdisciplinary education is that it can make learning very present. And this is an example of that. As we were studying the coast and islands habitat, another activity that we did is we identified kelp. And I just happened to be around the beach at one time and I gathered some samples, and then using the Audubon Field Guide to California, students identified the different kelp types. Another example is while we were reading about the Pigeon Express, to make learning more present, I had my students color in a picture of a pigeon using chalk because it blends really nicely. And then we combined a historical message, and then students wrote their own message, and we attached them to our birds. So another example of how interdisciplinary learning can be brought in is students can try different foods. So as we were doing the ranchos period, students tried pan de muertos. And then also students created pinch pots. So please stay tuned for our new curriculum, Earth Party, an early introduction to the Linnaean system of classification of living things. This curriculum will be coming out this summer. It's for grades 1 to 6, and it's a unit study. So it's a 12-week study, which will have a teacher's guide as well as a student book. So this curriculum is going to explore the kingdoms of living things from single-celled organisms up through the animal kingdom. And this, I have to say, this curriculum, it's been my feeling that it's really important for students, and especially even young students, to understand a broad framework on the forms of life. And I think given COVID-19, it's never been as important for even young kids to understand what single-celled organisms are. And in this case, the viruses are not even alive, not technically, but even single-celled life is actually just so complex. And that's why we created this curriculum, because it's so important even for young students to understand that. For more information, I invite you to visit our blog and store at carriershellcurriculum.com. We also have a COVID-19 blog, which we post articles to in terms of homeschool how-to and a lot of other issues and topics related to COVID-19. We also sell our curriculum plus literature boxes to support our curriculum on our website. We also invite you to visit OutSchool and AdLife EDU. This is where I will be teaching a number of online classes related to California, which I'm very excited about. Also, we're on Instagram at Carrier Shell Curriculum. And you can also email me at info@carriershellcurriculum.com. We are also product vendors with a number of charter schools: Inspire, iLead, South Sutter, Sky Mountain, Ocean Grove, and Compass, and service vendors through Homeschool Coaches. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe and be well.